Welcome into the New Orleans Saints postgame show presented by Verizon. I'm Caroline Gonzalez, joined by Mike Haas. We'll be joined shortly by Sean Payton and hopefully Teddy Bridgewater there at CenturyLink Field. We'll also be joined by our own John DeShazier. This is the only place where you'll see the live press conferences of those people, so be sure to tune in. Mike, an overall team win today from the New Orleans Saints after defeating the Seattle Seahawks 33-27. I think you can say that was a good team win for the Saints.
I think the clock was moving way too slow,
Yes.
way too slow, but what an unbelievable win. It's the first loss for Seattle under Pete Carroll in the month of September. They'd been 15-0. Pete Carroll took a football to the nose during pregame. The Saints lost Keith Kirkwood in pregame last week, so we know what that feels like. To go to Seattle, get a win, stay up there, lose Drew Brees with a thumb, Teddy Bridgewater, but how about the story of the day is Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara this week was asked, what are this team's chances of moving on, going to the Super Bowl? He says, I got a Florida lead, don't I?
I love that
Still
answer.
got that Florida lead. Well, Alvin Kamara today had 161 yards of the Saints, 265. He was, in a sense, the Saints offense. Teddy did exactly what he needed to do. 19 of 27, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, you go on a road and get a punt return for a touchdown and a defensive fumble for a touchdown. Man, that is huge.
You cannot give enough credit to the special teams, this defense, this offense, everyone, especially with that special teams run. Deontay Harris right off the bat set the tone for the entire game. I mean, as you said, the clock could not move slow enough.
It seemed like that was like, start the clock.
Right. But Deontay Harris set that tone with a 53-yard punt return right off the bat for the touchdown to start the game.
And it probably won't get talked about as much because of all that happened.
Right.
Thomas Morstead punt inside to the 2, next punt inside the 5 to the 3, and then later in the game, 1 to the 10. 3 punts inside the 10-yard line. What a phenomenal game for Thomas Morstead.
Yep. The Saints offense kind of got started out to a slow start. You had some pregame jitters. The crowd noise was obviously a factor. They had 4 penalties right off the bat for the Saints offense, and it just seemed like it was time and time again that they just couldn't get into a rhythm. But then as the game went on, as Teddy became more comfortable, as offensive line became more comfortable, they just found their rhythm. And it seemed like Teddy Bridgewater every time was just finding that connection with Alvin Kamara and, again, finding his comfort zone.
And they were not having to play uphill because of Harris and Von Bell, who got that touchdown. I mean, when you're struggling offensively, you look up and you're still winning the game,
right.
14-7, 13-7. Will Lutz had missed the extra point. He only missed 1 last year, missed 1 today. But it is a feeling of momentum that you're like, we're not really playing very well. We're winning 13-7. And I do think it kind of gave them a little bit of a boost as that game went on. And defensively, Demario Davis played a phenomenal game. Marshawn Lattimore had 12 tackles. Seattle went for it on 4th down 5 times. 5 times. They ended up being 2 of 3. They got 1 late because of a penalty. The Saints on 4th down, 1 for 1. And it was a key one. Got the touchdown pass to Michael Thomas, who, as you and I talked about, was almost invisible in that first quarter, but still came through. 7 targets, 5 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. There's so many ways for this Saints team to beat you.
Mike, no wide receivers had a reception until 2 minutes and 29 seconds left in the second quarter. I mean, we knew that the rain was going to play a factor, but I think it was just more of offensive chemistry, which we said that they found a little bit later, but no wide receiver receptions until 2 minutes left in the second quarter. I mean, that's almost unheard of for the Saints team.
It's almost maybe it was by plan. Maybe it was the clock and Teddy said, let's go short. Let's get the first underneath guy, which he did to Alvin or whoever it might be. But man, it kept this offense moving, kept them on the field. Did not, in the first half, Seattle. By the way, Seattle had 515 yards compared to the Saints 265. A lot of that coming late in the fourth with the game kind of well out of hand. But the Saints would do enough, but the penalties were very detrimental to this offense, and most of them were offensive.
And as you mentioned, they just came at inopportune times. It wasn't the amount of penalties, it was just the timing of them that really seemed to affect the Saints.
Right, but defensively, it's hard. They did not sack Russell Wilson. He is an enormously difficult guy to sack. They had 2 interceptions, 2, that were called back because of penalties at the end of the game. I mean, when they went up, 33-21 with 40 some seconds left, I mean, it is what it is. But to go into Seattle, and we may talk about this week in 2019 as we talked about the week in London, as we're waiting for Sean Payton to come to the lectern, and as soon as he does, we will take you there, where this team came together. The roster of 53, those guys who stayed out in Bellevue, Washington this week. There we go. Let's listen to Sean Payton as he comes up.
Obviously, a good win for us on the road against a real good football team. I thought we did a lot of things well. I thought we played in a different way, but a pretty complete game. The special teams return early was a great start for us. And then, we did enough things well defensively, offensively. It was a good win. Any questions?
Your review of how Teddy played.
Thought he played real well. The early series, I kind of hamstrung him a little bit with some calls getting in personnel-wise. But, I think he settled in and did a really good job.
He hit Mike Thomas on a 3rd and 5 and a drive right before halftime.
Yeah.
For like 14. It seems like after that, he was really on at a different level. Did you feel something changed at that point, maybe?
I just think as the game progressed, that 2-minute drive was important. Alvin played outstanding. I thought we got good movement up front. We had a handful of drives I thought were real critical, even late in the game, that 5 minutes, time off the clock, playing on the road against a team like that, that really helped us.
You touched on it, but how encouraging is it that your team gets contributions from all over?
Well, look, that's why it's a team. I thought we had a good week of practice, and there's something about that. There's something about the week in the locker room, even going through pregame. I thought we took the crowd completely out of it, and generally you have to deal with a lot louder place.
Sean, how conscious were you that you had never won a game without Drew Brees as your quarterback? How much pride do you and the staff take?
Well, that's a silly stat, Mike. I mean, I say that like there's been a couple games where we've locked in seeds. So, all right, we're playing a game without Drew. All right, that sells papers. I got it. So, look, I wasn't thinking about it. It happens at other positions, and it's unique when it's the quarterback. I understand that, and we approach things a little differently. Our quarterback meeting last night, Teddy changed it up. I texted Drew. I said, we're changing everything up now, And he called right away. I said, we're eating earlier than we ate before. We just and I was proud of the way he played. He's someone, if you really follow his career, he's kind of won wherever he's been, At a young age in Minnesota, he played this very same team on the road back in Minnesota in the playoffs in a game they very well should have won, if not for the field goal. So, he did that today. Well, look, you prepare, you hope. If you ever knew that as a coach, there's times where you feel like in our league sometimes the desperate team wins, but when you're playing Seattle, on the road, they're a real good football team, and so I thought the punt return early was a big play.
Sean, you got special teams.
I thought the turnover touchdown on defense was another big play.
You got the special teams and
Yeah.
touchdown. How important was it though to get the side of a couple of 4th down stops on defense and also
Yeah.
the time?
If you statistically looked and said you're going to return a punt for a touchdown and score defensively, you're going to be probably a 90-some% winner when you do that. And those were big plays.
How much did it help you as a play caller? Special teams touchdown like that.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a lead, it's different than when you're behind. So, but it was a good team win.
Morstead had 2 monster punts in the first half when it was still a field position battle. How big were those plays?
Well, we felt like it was going to be a field position game throughout, and I thought we were able to take advantage. When you're playing on their end of the field, the mistakes get exaggerated and magnified. And sure enough, the punch-out fumble was at their end of the field. It's a scoop and score for us. We had the one muff punt, but Our ball security offensively was good. Overall, again, a good team win.
Did you want to get Alvin involved heavily early, just to kind of?
Well, I don't know if it was coincidence or based on what we were doing play-wise, but we had a pretty good rotation going. I thought he played really well. I mean, he made some plays, with second effort, balance. He's extremely strong.
Seems like he never goes down with first contact. How rare is that?
Well, we've seen it for 3 years now, so it's new for you, but he's got really good balance. He's strong. He's a really, really sturdy runner.
Sean, what was the plan defensively on Wilson?
Yeah, you're trying to look. It's a challenge. He did it last week against Pittsburgh. We spied him a few times, but when his eyes get down in the pass rush, he's elusive enough, to come out of some tackles. The last time I think we played him in New Orleans, he was dealing with an ankle, and so you were getting more of a pocket. But man, he's tough to bring down and tough to contain.
Sean, how curious were you this week just to see how this team's going to respond?
I don't know if curious was the word. I mean, I think our jobs as coaches is, I know what our job is to each week give your team the best chance to win. That's a responsibility, and so we try to do that.
You said earlier that you could feel something different in the locker room this week. Was that like rallying around his dream?
Yeah, I think maybe. I mean, the idea that, hey, look, Teddy's going to be just fine. The rest of us have to worry about our job, and if we can surround him with a lot of good performances like we did today, then we're going to have success.
Sean, do you feel like finding Harris, another small school player, is like a diamond in a rough situation for you guys, signing him as a...
Well, on the return I did. On the fumble I didn't. So it was a diamond and a piece of coal. Right?
Yeah.
But he's done well. He's confident.
Sean, did you get a chance to talk to Drew at all today? Leading up to the game?
No, like yesterday we talked, but that was it. Last one. Any more?
I was going to ask you about just facing adversity and can it galvanize a team? Since this happened this week, with what y'all encountered last week, did you feel like your team?
Look, I liked our schedule a lot. I like coming here. We've traveled well when we've done that. 2 trips to London, I think a hurricane in, I don't know what year, 07 or 08. I mean, we've played well. Your team's removed from a lot of the distraction, and, the Bellevue setup was great. So, thank you.
We'll have Teddy in here shortly. The locker room's open from the entrance by the field.
Mike, I'm not too sure how I'd feel if someone, especially my coach, called me a diamond and a piece of coal. But I guess it's pretty accurate,
that's
right?
That's one of the wittiest things Sean Payton has said in a post-game press conference in some time. He's right. On the touchdown, loved him. Found the diamond in the rough. On the punt fumble,
Who is this guy?
Not so much. Assumption College, what is that? But boy, he had a kick return for 33 yards. He's electrifying. We're getting ready to go to John DeShazer to get his thoughts on this. There's so many key moments in this football game, one of them being Saints are up 20-7, kicking a 53-yard field goal. Will Lutz, and he's short, balls heavy. It rained almost the entire game.
Right.
And the Seahawks were penalized for covering the center. Ended up being a first down. They drove the field, went for it on 4th down, touchdown to Michael Thomas.
Yep.
So instead of 20-7, and really Seattle with good field position, the Saints are up 27-7. Huge momentum switch in this football game based on a covering the center penalty by Seattle.
And another huge turning point that we didn't mention before Sean Payton came on was the fumble recovery and touchdown by the Saints defense. When Eli Apple came up from behind, punched the ball out, the Saints, the referees did their job this time and didn't call any whistles, just let it go. So we kind of lucked out on that one. And then, the defense scored. And Sean Payton said it, anytime that you have in your game when the Saints or when your team's defense scores and you have a punt return for a touchdown, the chances of you winning are pretty high up there. We're going to go ahead now to our analyst, John DeShazer, who is at CenturyLink Field now.
Well, Caroline, Mike, I think you heard it all from Coach Payton. That's probably the most complete game out of the 3 that we've seen the Saints play so far this season. And when you get a touchdown offensively and special teams and on defense, then you give yourselves a pretty good chance. But the Saints were really outstanding in all phases of it. Gave up a lot of yards, 515, but they did the whole bend but don't break kind of thing defensively. Just, keep everything in front of you. Try not to allow the big play. They allowed a few big plays, but, man, they've got to feel pretty good about the way they came out of this one. This is the first game this team has played of significance, real significance, without Drew Brees since he joined this team in 2006. Only the fourth game he has missed for this franchise since he joined it. So to have to go in and change everything around to kind of reconfigure the offense, really a good look for the Saints with only a week to prepare and get ready to play in a really difficult venue. I thought Alvin Kamara had a fantastic game, 9 catches for, I think, 92 yards and a touchdown, and he ran extremely physically, 16 carries, 69 yards, and a touchdown. I thought Michael Thomas showed up when he needed to. The offensive line did what it needed to, although, many of those 11 penalties came against that offensive line, and that's still an area that has to be cleaned up. Some of those might have been crowd factor penalties, but some of them were, the holes and the things that you don't want to see and the things that we saw last week against the Rams. But all in all, this is going to be a great flight home for this team because they came early, got into preparation, felt really good about themselves. And, I don't care what anybody says. This was a kind of prove it to themselves game. They wanted to show what they could do without Drew Brees. And obviously, you want Drew Brees to be on this team. You want him on the field. He's a guy who's going to the Hall of Fame, and this is a better team with him. But when he goes down for, an undetermined amount of time, and he's going to be out for a while, then everybody's got to kind of band together and kind of rally. And I thought they did exactly that here today. All 3 phases of the game really played strong and really came and got it done. It was pretty amazing, actually, to see the poise that Teddy Bridgewater played with. People forget the guy started for a couple of years in Minnesota. He went to the playoffs with Minnesota. He had some good years with Minnesota. He can play the game, and they signed him. The Saints re-signed him this offseason for a reason. They brought him in, traded for him, gave up a high pick for a reason to have that guy. So to put him out there and to put him in a situation on the road where he hadn't played, he himself says, I haven't played a significant game since 2015. That was the playoff game they played against the Seahawks. So for him to be able to come out, have that kind of poise, made some really big throws, didn't turn it over, didn't do anything to hurt his team. You heard Coach Payton say he kept him under wraps, and he might have handicapped him a little bit early in the game. But I thought as they went along, loosened up, showed that trust in Teddy Bridgewater, and Teddy Bridgewater showed that he earned that trust. He showed that he was worthy of that trust. So the offense looked smooth. It will get smoother, obviously, the more he plays, the more comfortable he's going to get with the weapons that he has. But for a first run, you can't ask for a whole lot more in this situation. Talking about playing against a team that was 2-0 and really coming into their house. And, when they had the ball and when they needed to get it done, they really got it done. Defensively, obviously, again, they gave up the yards, but and you gave up a lot of time to Russell Wilson. But look, you've got to sacrifice something when you're playing that guy. Extremely elusive. They wanted to box him in, keep him in the pocket, weren't able to do that the entire time. But the main thing is the scoreboard. That tells you the whole story that you need to know. Win the game, and the Saints were able to win the game. That's the main thing that they came here and were able to do in Drew Brees' absence. The first game that Sean Payton has coached and won without Drew Brees, so that says something about the talent that they've built around Drew Brees. Those first 4 really were not significant games. We're talking about a couple of games they played after they had clinched the number 1 seed, and a couple of injury games. One was early in the season and today. So this is really the first significant one that they've played without Drew Brees, and I thought they gave a really good showing for themselves and something to hang their hat on as they prepare for next Sunday night's game against Dallas. So, a good flight home for this team. They've earned the rest that they're going to get tomorrow and Tuesday. Hopefully they'll heal up and be ready for Sunday night. But for right now, this is one to celebrate. I know they have the 24-hour rule. They might stretch it out to 48 hours for this one because it was just that impressive, Caroline.
Well said by JD.
Yeah, I mean,
on all counts.
Is there anything else that we have to say? I mean, I think you covered it all pretty much.
I mean, it was amazing. Drew, by the way, Drew Brees tweeted, "Hey, way to go, team! Who dat, baby?" So certainly he's
thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Been a part of this. Tomorrow is 9/23. For those scoring at home, it is the autumnal equinox. It is the first day of fall, and the Saints will do so atop the NFC South, 2-1.
I was wondering where you were going.
You wonder
with
where I was
that.
going with that? I'm a big autumnal equinox guy. It won't feel like autumn, don't get me wrong.
No.
2-1, Tampa lost to the Giants late today. They fall to 1-2. Atlanta lost in Indianapolis. They are 1-2. Carolina won over Arizona to get their first win in 1-2. So 2-1 Saints, the rest of the division 1-2, with a very, very hot Dallas Cowboys team coming to town Sunday night. It'll be crazy loud. Dallas is averaging 32 points a game. Now they've beaten the Giants, the Redskins in Miami. So
The Eli Manning Giants.
that's right. Take that for what it is, and you have to wonder what the other 66 teams are thinking tonight who had a shot at Alvin Kamara. And it was the Saints with the 67th pick in that third round out of Tennessee. And the guy is just, I'm so enamored watching him play.
Absolutely. I think
it's just fun.
I think everyone is, and we just heard from John DeShazier. We'll get out there back to CenturyLink Field shortly to hear from quarterback Teddy Bridgewater. But how much did having an entire week to game prep help this Saints offense, the Saints team, really? I mean, you talk about last week, everyone was just bashing Teddy Bridgewater. Oh, he's not ready to run the offense. He's not, ready to do this. And then you come into this week, he had an entire week to game prep. Sean Payton, he said changed up everything, changed the time they ate, changed everything. And they had an entire week to game prep. And then now they'll have another entire week to prepare for the Dallas Cowboys.
I agree with that, but I also looked at that game going, when you look at the offense, and maybe he ran a lot of underneath routes, the offense is the offense.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a Sean Payton offense. If I would say the only thing that Teddy's going to work on this week is going to be the 4th and 1 or the 3rd and 1 where Drew takes the ball and goes over the top of the goal line. The ball hit McCoy's buttocks and he actually fumbled the ball, and so he couldn't get it across the goal line, or that would have been classic Drew Brees touchdown by Teddy. But as JD said, he played with a ton of poise. Nothing seemed to really faze him. And when you're playing downhill as they did with that lead, before he touched the ball, he didn't touch the ball until 8:45 left in the first quarter, and they were up 7-0. That's pretty cool.
This Saints defense has to be exhausted. It seemed like every time they get a stop and then they have to come back on the field, it seemed like that happened time and time again. And like you said earlier, the clock just drug on. And of course, it seems like looking at the score, 33-27, that the game was a lot closer than it actually was. But after probably the second quarter, it seemed like the Saints seemed to pull away. But looking at this overall Saints team, what do you think they need to improve on? What are they going to look at on the tape as to what they need to improve on going into this week against the Dallas Cowboys?
To me, it's clear. There's two areas, and this is across the board in the NFL, and that's penalties. And I'm not going to lay all that on the Saints. They had 179 penalties in the first 2 weeks of the season. Prior to the afternoon games today, 3 weeks of the season, so through the noon games, which is way more than they've ever had. The holding penalties are out of control. But the Saints have had 21 penalties in 2 games, 11 last week, 10 this week. And so that is something I know Sean Payton will look at. Third down. Third down percentages against the Texans. The Saints were 3 of 13. Today, 3 of 11. So 6 of 24 on third down. That is not this team. This team is pretty strong on third down because they're typically in a short situation. They're not in 3rd and 9 and 3rd and 10, those kind of things. They're a 3rd and 3, which makes them a very, very difficult team to defend. And I'll say defensively, Seattle had 3rd and 15, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 9, and ended up getting huge plays to Tyler Lockett. It's the big plays. I thought defensively, Marshawn guarded well, had 12 tackles, but it's those big plays after they work so hard on 1st and 2nd down. Chasing around Russell Wilson is not something that's fun to do. And then to come back, but they give up those big plays on 3rd down that allows that drive to continue. So those 3 areas, defensively, penalties, and 3rd down conversion, I would think would be areas of concern.
Again, we'll be getting you the Teddy Bridgewater press conference shortly as soon as he comes to the podium, the only place that you can watch the press conference live. Back to the offense, as we talked about earlier, Teddy seemed to get comfortable with Kamara, leading rusher, leading receiver. He seemed to have his comfort zone. Would you like to see that offense develop a little bit into this next week, maybe finding Michael Thomas a little bit more, Jared Cook, Latavius Murray, using his other offensive weapons?
I would think so. I mean, Cook dropped a ball that probably should have been caught. He just turned a little late. Murray, I think, may have run one or twice, did not have a lot of touches. And, sometimes I think when you get into the flow of the game like today, you're like, if they're not going to stop Alvin, let's keep going to Alvin in one way or the other.
Right.
But I do think you're right. I mean, Michael Thomas, we've just gotten somewhat spoiled.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael Thomas had 9 targets last week, 7 catches, whatever the numbers were, and 5 catches today, touchdown. I mean, he's doing what he has to do when he has to do it. And same thing with Alvin. But yeah, I think in order, and Ted Ginn he was the first guy that was not Alvin Kamara. He was the first wide receiver to make a catch, I believe, today. But they're banged up. So yeah, I do think they need to find kind of who Jared Cook and Latavius Murray are going to be. We just haven't seen a lot of them. And quite frankly, when you've got 161 yards out of Alvin Kamara, maybe you don't. But I do think it will lighten the load from Teddy Bridgewater. And we also didn't see what I would have thought, this week that Sean talked about, when we were talking about Teddy Bridgewater being the quarterback. He's like, well, who said that?
Right. I thought we were going to see more Taysom Hill.
He kind of played into the Teddy Taysom, and we did not see Taysom really line up a quarterback a lot. He did line up in the slot and was supposed to be a receiver, and he played some, but he's also your special teams guy. So, maybe that was Sean being Sean, making them prepare for more Taysom than maybe he'd ever planned. Who knows? But it was a great offensive game plan to go into that place. I've been to that. I was at the Seattle playoff game, the last one, where they lost, and it rained just like it did today from beginning to end. And by the end, that football gets heavy. It was tough, and Seattle had nothing to lose. With Russell Wilson, they were down, so many points. What was strange to me as we're waiting on Teddy Bridgewater is that they didn't go for 2 towards the end, so that their 2 possessions would have been, they could have been down 11. They could have been down 8 and 3, but they kicked the field goal, which meant, they kicked the extra point, which means they would have had to have scored 2 touchdowns. Yeah. Interesting. I know there's a chart somewhere that says what to do, but that one seemed a little strange to me. But Sean Payton, what a phenomenal coaching job.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier in the week on that conference call when he said, how do you know he's going to be our number 2? And Pete Carroll said on his conference call, we're going to prepare for both Taysom and Teddy. How much does it help the Saints? I mean, when we were watching the game, you said anytime they go on the road, I get a little bit nervous. But when we're at home, I have the mindset going into the Dome that we are going to win. So they're coming back to the Dome this week to take on the Dallas Cowboys. You have our crowd noise, you have our fans, and of course, excited for our Fantennial weekend for the NFL 100-year anniversary.
It's going to be big. Dallas coming to town. Dallas brings a lot of, people. They'll bring people to this game. Sunday night, 7:20, and it's really the next 2 games, because they play Dallas and then they play Tampa. You get your first NFC South opponent, so you play back-to-back at home. I mean, when the schedule came out in April and we go Houston Monday night, at Rams, at Seattle, Dallas, those 4 games were going to be enormously tough, which is what happens when you make it to the NFC Championship game. The NFL makes it hard on you the following year. And so to come out of this stretch 2-1, I think, if you ask a coach or a player, they're going to say we want 3-0. But from a fan standpoint, 2-1 with back-to-back home games, and the rest of the division is 1-2. And other than Drew's thumb, which by the way is like saying that's a pretty big other. Right. Injury-wise, the wide receiver core is a bit banged up, but they didn't. Caden Ellis got hurt late today, but I didn't see any major injuries. Right. We're getting closer to getting Sheldon Rankins back. And you're going to have another mobile quarterback in Dak Prescott. Yep. So it'll be, I cannot wait for Sunday night.
We're going to go ahead and go to Teddy Bridgewater at the podium now.
In a tough environment, it's usually tough to come in and play in. It's great to get that feeling of winning again. And let's just try to continue to keep this thing going.
Coach said focus was really there this week. Did you sense that? You guys were really well ready to go today?
Yeah. I think with us being in Bellevue for a week, it forces you to continue to bond with one another. You don't have our families weren't here. They may have came at the end of the week, but just towards the earlier part of the week, we had a lot of time to just bond with each other. Then when you went out to the practice field, you just saw that look in everyone's eyes that, man, we want to get back to winning, and it was just great. We had a great week in Bellevue, and it was just great to get the win.
You told Tracy after the game that you got emotional pregame. What were you thinking about?
So I was just thinking about the process from the time I was injured up until now, and just thinking about all the ones who believed in me, and just being back on this stage and getting to show how faithful God is. All my emotions were just running at the same time.
Teddy, how long did it take you to settle in after the emotions?
I was settled from the jump. Like Coach mentioned, we had a great week of practice. Everyone had that look in their eyes, and we knew that it was going to be a tough environment to come and play in, but I knew that we had to remain poised in the noise, and we did a great job of doing that. Of course, we had some things and some communication things go wrong early in the game, but once we fixed those things, we were able to get things rolling.
Teddy, did those emotions hit you for the first time getting ready for the game today, or all week it kind of crept up every once in a while?
No, it just hit me right before the game. And I had joked with the guys, like, man, I haven't felt this feeling since 2015 or the playoff game against Seattle in 2016. But it was just great. The guys were very supportive. And then when you go out there on the football field and you can have a punt return for a touchdown, a fumble return for a touchdown by the defense, and defense is doing a great job of getting them off the field, it just makes your job of playing quarterback that much easier.
You had one, there was a 3rd and 5 in the drive at the end of the first half where you hit Mike Thomas for like 14 yards. And it seemed like at that point, it was really clicked after that. Do you remember that moment? Like, was there any kind of turning point in that drive for you?
Yeah, and we were trying to make sure that we could secure some points before the half. We knew that we would get the ball back. And for me, it just took for me to realize that, man, I have one of the best wide receivers in the NFL out here, and I get to throw the ball to him whenever I feel like it. And just use your guys. You watch Alvin make plays all day. You watch Mike when you throw it to him, it's a for sure catch. So in that moment, we knew that if we can convert right there and get Mike going, we knew that we could get after those guys.
How amazing is Alvin to watch sometimes?
Man, he's like the human joystick. You give him the ball, he's spinning, he's juking, he's bouncing off of guys. And as a quarterback, when you can throw him a screen and you watch him, just watch the play happen, it's like, man, this guy, he's a bad man. And we're glad he's on our team. And, he's one of those guys who's one of the leaders on offense.
So you mentioned special teams and defense set the tone and helping you, but winning on the road in a place like this, what does it do for your confidence?
It does a lot. We know that we have a good football team, but I think coming into this game, we were a desperate team. We knew that we needed to win, and we were desperate for the win. And when we played with that mindset, it gave us that chip on our shoulders. Like, man, we're not leaving out of here without a win. And DeMario, he talked about hunting in the pregame and things like that, and those guys were hunting on defense and kicking game, and we were trying to do our part on offense.
What did DeMario's pregame speak? Usually that's Drew's thing, but DeMario looked like he filled it.
Yeah, that just says a lot about this team. We have a great group of captains, and to watch DeMario step in pregame and give a speech like that to get the guys fired up to play, it does something to you. And everyone responded well, and we came out with the victory.
Teddy, Sean Payton said that you mixed some things up in the meeting last night. He teased. First of all, can you describe, you don't have to give all the details what you did, but in general, what was it that you wanted to change up?
Well, I just wanted to move up our dot meeting, dotting the plays that I like to run. I just bump it up about an hour and a half or so, and that was about it.
And did you do it intentionally to be like, let's not do everything the same because you're not trying to replace someone else?
No, not at all. It was just one of those things where I felt like we had some time and we could just bump it up, and we did.
You threw your hat to the stands post-game. What was going through your mind as you were running?
Man, so this morning when I woke up, I told myself, man, no matter what happens, I'm a winner. And, we all talk about winning on the football field, but, I feel like I'm a winner in life because I try not to make it about me, but I just think about, the process that I had to go through and to get here and all the ones who believed in me. Those are the winners with me. And then when I'm out there on the football field and we were able to win a football game like that, my emotions are at an all-time high. I can't wait to get back in the locker room and celebrate with the guys who made this happen. And, I just tossed my hat. It was like a toss of joy.
I heard Chop stopped playing in the post-game locker room. You hit bike lift afterwards?
Yeah, they forced me to do it. I was trying to keep my cool, but Craig and Doug Williams forced me to do it, Marcus Williams. So when I got to the locker room, Drew had texted my phone. And, we have been texting all week. And, we love Drew. And he loves us. And we know that he wanted to be here and he wanted to be on the sideline. But, he's a guy who's very supportive. Everyone sees what goes on in football, but he's one of those guys who's very supportive in life. He's checking on you and things like that.
Did he give you that one message this week that sort of really motivated you? Anything particularly he said?
Honestly, it's one message that he gave me a while back, and this has stuck with me. Just completions are good. And that's my mindset when I'm out there. Just find completions, and the rest will take care of itself.
Teddy, Elvin said that you and him were talking on the sideline before you all even entered the game, and just talking about starting. Like, what was your mindset in that moment, just like knowing that you're about to kind of get on the field and talking out?
I was excited, but just watching Alvin, he's always calm, cool, and I try to be calm and cool also. But he's one of those guys who just reassures that, man, we got this. Let's bring the energy. Let's play. And he's one of those guys who's very excited about playing the game. If you're not getting excited about playing the game, you shouldn't play it. And he's one of those guys who makes sure that everyone on the sideline is excited about what we're about to do.
Teddy, the emotions before the game, was it different than Week 17 last year when you got back in to start that game?
Yeah, it was very different. And you never want to take the game for granted. I think last year what happened, we had a playoff spot locked up. And to come into a game like this today that has more meaning, it was one of those games where, your emotions are high because this game does have meaning. And you haven't experienced this in a long time. But I think I was able to do a great job of controlling them. Coaching staff did a great job of, calling a great game plan. And, the playmakers that we have, offensive line, we gave up 0 sacks today. So whenever you can go out there and come away from a game clean, you're able to balance your emotions and stay composed.
Teddy, you said earlier this week people probably hadn't seen the real Teddy Bridgewater with the Saints yet. How much did you need to find out what you were going to do out there? I mean, were you sure that you had this in you, or did you need to see it too?
No, I was sure. I've been sure since I stepped back on the field. And, I mentioned that sometimes I found myself not being myself earlier in my days here. But I think I've had this week, and the guys, coaching staff, they just reassured me and my family, you're Teddy, and, be you. But and that's been my message to the guys all week. Just be you, be the best version of yourself that you can be. And I challenged the guys this week, and, they answered the challenge.
How much does it calm your nerves when you take the field and you already got a 7-0 lead before you get out?
That's a great way to start a football game. Whenever you can come out on the field and you're up 7-0 without even having to do anything, it's kind of relaxing, but you still want to stay in that aggressive mindset and continue to try to run up the score.
It felt like in the preseason, you mentioned no sacks in the preseason and even last week, holding on to the ball for a while, getting hit, and decisiveness. Was that anything you were working on, trying to, release the ball quicker or make quicker decisions?
Yeah, that just goes back to me being me, and just playing the game the way that I know how to play it. And that's just getting the ball to the playmakers outside and allowing those guys to make plays, and we were able to do that today.
And you obviously had a tough decision to make this offseason between, I don't know if it was being impatient and getting back on the field sooner with possibly another team or staying here and being patient. I mean, I think you were already content with your decision, but the way things have unfolded, has that been even all the more rewarding for you?
You can say that, but unfortunately the way it happened, you don't wish that on anyone. But, I told the guys when we came in after the game, just cherish these moments because you never know when it can be taken away from you. And, I'm grateful to have this opportunity, and I just want to make the best of it.
You told that like you addressed the team sort of, or just like?
Yeah, so,
is that
yeah.
rare for you? Like, is that something you hadn't done a lot previously?
I haven't done it in a while, but, my emotions were high, and, I just wanted to, leave a message with the guys.
Did you talk to Russell after the game at all?
What's that?
Russell Wilson.
Yeah, we talked, and, he's a great guy. Just asked how my family's doing and told him to tell him that he said hello. Thank you.
Cherish these moments indeed, Mike. Well, the New Orleans Saints defeated the Seattle Seahawks today 33-27, will advance to 2-1 as their record for the 2019 season. Let's go ahead and watch some of the playoffs from the Saints' victory today.
68, and he is strong. Bandage it up and let's go. Dixon's punt travels to the 47, and Harris with a little wiggle, and there he goes! Deontay Harris gonna take it the distance. Here's Carson. There's another earthquake, Jim. Well, he broke a tackle or two. He might have had a little beast quake. Ball is picked up by the Saints. That's Bell. And everybody's looking around like the ball was whistled down, but the Saints don't believe so. They go to him again. And Carson gets stopped cold. And look at Dennis Allen. And then 10. Setting up a screen. Kamara. Walker's in front. Inside the 20. Breaks a tackle. And he steps in for the...
You might just give it to him quickly on the other side.
There it is to Thomas for the touchdown.
So many big plays offensively, defensively, special teams, and really, you really heard from Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, it was so, he just had that smile during the whole press conference. I saw a tweet from Wolfson from CBS,
Tracy
Wolfson, and she said that she had talked to Teddy right after the game, and Teddy had said he was really emotional before the game. He even had shed a tear during the national anthem. He's been through a lot, which I think is great. But what I like about Teddy so thus far is that I want him to have that chip on his shoulder, you know what I mean? I want him to have that chip on his shoulder that it's been some time and he's always trying to prove people and do things to help this team win. But he did exactly that. And as Drew told him, this is pretty simple stuff. Completions are good.
Good.
He had 19 of them today, 27. Here's my little advice, Teddy. Winning is fun. Do those two things, and I think everything will take care of itself. But man, it's just good, so good to see him play well. Did not get sacked, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 19 of 27. He and Alvin Kamara, man, just dominant.
And I think, as he mentioned, you know, he was always sure of himself. But after coming back from an injury that people are constantly talking about, I mean, he still gets questions to this day about, oh, how are you going to bounce back? How do you feel? How was it? Are you the same as you were before? I mean, after having a victory, and you know, I think he showed today that he can be that person that he was before, and that he has always had that feeling in himself that he is a great quarterback. Well, that'll do it for the New Orleans Saints postgame show presented by Verizon. As I said earlier, the New Orleans Saints defeated the Seattle Seahawks today 33-27 on the road. They'll come back next week and take on the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday at 7:20 p.m. and we hope to see you there. For Mike Haas, Caroline Gonzalez, John DeShazier at CenturyLink Field, thanks for joining us on the New Orleans Saints postgame show presented by Verizon.